Yeah, happy to be participating in this. My name is Nati Zawada, and I'm a designer, and I'm a founder and owner of an eco-friendly brand called StarSeeds. I've been working in fashion industry since I was 17, so at least 18 years now. and yeah, and throughout my path, I've been working for fashion brands and big fashion houses such as Alexander McQueen, and um, and then my experience and my lifestyle led me to eco-friendly and sustainable fashion. So everything led up to launching the eco-friendly fashion yoga clothing brand, which is StarSeeds. And from my own perspective and experience, I want to talk and have an open conversation with you about what makes the price of an ethical and sustainable fashion, because I've been faced with my personal conflict, because at the beginning when I was launching Starseeds, I wanted to make it affordable, and then I almost didn't make it through because of the demand and the competition and the lack of funds for the marketing. But let me bring it down, because I think what's important for all the consumers to understand is what actually makes the price of sustainable and ethical fashion, and what are the differences within producing and selling, let's say, common fashion comparing to sustainable and ethical one. But I would love to know, because there's just two of us, so we have time for that. What brought you to this room? Why are you interested in the subject?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Okay,
I can hear you
perfect.
very well.
So the full disclosure, because I have a session after you, but in general, like topics of sustainability, where fashion is a big part, is definitely like a good one. So I'm very happy to learn, to meet you, and yes, listen to what you have to say.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So what do you do? What's your session about? I would love to join.
Yeah, so my session is on communication and changing perspective on engaging into giving negative feedback, that it is
Oh,
really not such a bad
okay.
thing.
Yeah, fantastic. Interesting. Yeah. And you're in this room
Yes, so
for
it
this?
is my first
Yeah.
time at
Okay.
this conference, so
Yeah.
I have no
Yeah. Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
how it
Yeah.
works.
Okay.
I just
Lovely.
can imagine it continues.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay. So let me start talking about my thing. So yeah, first of all, I'm in Bali right now, so it's 7 p.m. here.
Oh my God. Why are you not sitting in front of the ocean? Why is it this like background?
Because the beaches are closed, they are shut down, so it's not available at the moment. We're also suffering from this, but yeah. So recently I wrote a blog post on this theme, but I really wanted to break it down because of my personal struggle of making things affordable as a designer and owner of the eco-friendly company. I wanted to make it a mid-range, and the thing is that I was faced with making the decisions whether I could go more eco-friendly and more sustainable and more ethical, or I could lower down the prices. So to break it down, what makes the price of sustainable fashion, starting from the yarn and ending at the packaging, not even mentioning the marketing, because this is all completely different subject, and it's not very different than any other marketing. But I want to talk about the differences, and particularly between the sustainable fashion and the common fashion. So for example, to cultivate organic cotton, you need at least 3 years to clean up the earth, to keep the biodiversity, because of the artificial fertilizers that are killing the biodiversity. So it takes up to 3 years without growing anything. And obviously this cost has to be covered. So this is number one. In terms of things like materials like bamboo yarn, it's different because bamboo grows upwards and it doesn't need that much soil. It doesn't need a bigger area for growth, but because it grows upwards, it's mostly not considered organic. It's still considered sustainable because it doesn't use much of water, because it takes water from the environment, and it's naturally antibacterial, which makes it possible to grow without any antibacterial sprays. So that's also eco-friendly. And yeah, and it doesn't need much land to grow. But coming back to the organic cotton and common use cotton. So the organic cotton is also hand-picked. So you can imagine it's much more expensive than the cotton that is being cut by big machines. But the quality of the yarn is much higher. So maybe it doesn't grow as fast as the one we've used artificial fertilizer, but it is much higher quality, which means that it's going to be much more durable and much softer. So this is the price that we pay for the less efficiency of the yarn coming out from the cultivation, organic cultivation. Then there is that ethical aspect of the farmers who are really struggling with their health issues caused by the toxins that are used for growing the common cotton. So there was a big case on those because they are super expensive, and also not every farmer can afford those fertilizers. So there was the case of the farmers committing suicide because they couldn't afford that kind of thing. So this is an ethical aspect that we are happy to introduce, and we want to talk about this more as sustainable designers, because it's very important to be aware of those situations. And there were cases of cancer diseases around the farmers' villages where the common cotton was cultivated. Yeah. So now you might wonder why companies like H&M, for example, or Inditex can maintain lower prices for their organic range of clothing. Well, the answer is simple: because they own organic cotton. They own cotton fields. So mostly they own non-organic cotton fields. But because of the demand that were created by consumers and the smaller brands who started talking about this, they started thinking that this is the time to actually consider doing something organic. So they came up with the idea that they will have a small range of something that is exclusive and eco-friendly. So it's a matter of discussion whether it's good to buy from these brands something that is organic or it's not. And I'm not gonna answer to that, because I believe that it's good that they are changing and switching to more sustainable practices. doesn't matter where it's coming from, what's the original intention, but it matters that they are actually changing. So whether you buy from these brands and you create more demand of them to make something more sustainable, if you just buy the organic range, or whether you buy from the niche brands, you're still supporting the movement, the sustainable movement. So I think it's good either way. But personally, I wouldn't support these big brands. But this is just my vision and my decision as a consumer, not as a designer. So moving on, we only talked about the yarns so far. Then comes the material. So the materials, the eco-friendly textiles are up to 4 times more expensive comparing to the common materials which are not sustainable. And this price can change, and it's already changing because of the demand. So obviously, the more demand, the lower the prices. Then there is additional cost in terms of finishing the fabric. So finishing for people who are not from the fashion industry, the clothing industry, is something that we apply on the surface of the material. So it's literally the machine that is made to create some softer surface or something that is moisture wicking, or all these technical aspects of the fabrics. Yeah, so you either have again the sustainable ones and the non-sustainable ones, and obviously the sustainable eco-friendly ones are more expensive. Then there is also the dye of the fabric, the coloring. So there are there are natural dyes which do not allow the full spectrum of colors, but there are also Ecotech certified dyes, which is the most sustainable way of achieving every Pantone color. And this is like a global, and it's very common in Europe for the designers, ethical designers, to use the or Ecotech certified dyes. And there is also a certification for the organic fabrics, which is called GOTS. And this is the highest certification that values and really tests and check the organic textiles. Yeah. So on top of the textiles, you have things like trimmings, threads, elastic bands, zippers, all sorts of things that make up the final garment. And in this field, there's still not much, but it's developing. And each year, for example, as a brand, we visit trade shows, trade fairs that are introducing those things. So the most popular trade show for that is Munich Fabric Fair in Germany. There is another one that is in London, Sustainable Angle, and it's really good, and it's been growing. And I think for the first time at London Fashion Week, they've been showing their range. So it's coming up to more, let's say, popular fashion. Okay, so we talked about the fabrics, we talked about the trimmings, and what else? Oh yeah, actually the whole design process can be eco-friendly and can be ethical. So choosing the right factory, and again, there's a limitation when it comes to factories that have fair trade and ethical standards. So for me, the basic things is whether the factory workers are paid fairly, whether they being paid for the additional hours, and whether they have decent conditions, working conditions. So this is something that is most difficult to be checked, and therefore I feel responsible to go and check it myself. So I maintain a good communication and relation with my factories that are based in Portugal. But I know a lot of companies ignore that part, and they just don't know their supply chain. So as a consumer, what you can do is actually ask the companies, the brands, whether they track their supply chain. And this will give you the idea whether they know what's going on, who's being paid fair, who's being treated fair. So that actually can build the trust between you and the company. And there's also the Global Transparency Index, which has been created by Fashion Revolution. So Fashion Revolution is an organization that came up to life after the tragedy of the Rana Plaza, where the big factory, production factory collapsed, and about 1,000 people died because of horrible conditions and the standards, and nothing was checked, and it just collapsed, and it was tragic. So since then, they created this this big let's say organization that is fighting for human rights, working in the factories, in the production field. And since then, normal common consumers started raising the questions: who made my clothes? They're doing campaigns yearly, so maybe you came across online, maybe on Instagram, you came across this slogan, who made my clothes, with people holding just a cardboard, or maybe not, but anyway, this is very important to know who made your clothes and what is in your clothes. So whether there has been child labor involved, or some unethical practices, or companies are not clear about what's in the fabrics. Everything now can be checked, and if it's not laid out on the website, you can always ask the questions. You can just email the company, and you can get this information. And of course, it would have been much better if we have the standards and the demands from the companies to have this information laid out. And this is why the transparency index come, because this is much more easy just to check this information. But it doesn't mean that companies who have the high transparency index are more ethical. They're just more transparent. So this is also important to know. So when it comes to the production, companies choose the factory that pays fairly, and then it takes time and additional cost to actually deliver few samples, few prototypes. So what most high street companies do, they just make a drawing, the technical drawing, and then they produce the garment. So oftentimes you have very inconsistent garments coming from one company. You will have one nice fit of the leggings, and you will have one horrible hanging, baggy, popping out in the knee area. And you wonder why they're so inconsistent, you know? And then you have to go and try it, and you cannot shop online because you cannot trust their consistency. But what the niche companies tend to do is that we make multiple prototypes, and we improve each time by getting feedback from someone who's testing out our garments. So we're working on the right fitting. We are testing how the fabric sits on the body, because every time when we're working with a new fabric within a new style, there can be things that are not working for this style, for this silhouette in this fabric. Yeah, so this is an additional cost, and it takes time to get the feedback from different testers or brand ambassadors or influencers or whoever you get involved. So obviously the finishing touches, the design features, they make an additional cost, and then comes the packaging. And in terms of the packaging, also there's the packaging that is online. So you're sending things online, or you have a physical boutique. So you have to consider the hang tags, the pins, the strings, whatever, however this is attached to it. Then you have the storage, and this is something that is that we came across as a challenge at the beginning as an eco-friendly company, because if you produce sportswear or something that is soft and doesn't have much structure, you need to find a good storage for that, not in order not to be damaged. So at first we thought, oh, we'll just fold them into the cardboard. We'll ask the factory to just fold them without using any plastic. Well, this failed because obviously some dust came into the cardboard, and we had to throw away or just give away these things that we didn't use the plastic bags for. So at the beginning of our journey as a company, we struggled to find any plastic envelope that is recyclable or biodegradable. So on our way, first we used the normal plastic and we reused it. Then we finally found something that is recyclable. Then we found something that is recycled already and can be re-recyclable. So what we did, we kept on asking our factories and demanding from them to find something that is more of a sustainable solution, because it wasn't there on the market. And here in Bali, we have a lot of companies that are thinking progressively and that are sustainable, because we're in nature, so we are more connected to nature. We think about these things. We don't want to pollute the ocean. We don't want to pollute the earth. So I had few meetings, networking events with brands just like my brand, niche small brands that were struggling with the same thing, the plastic envelopes. And we came across the cassava bags. Cassava is a plant that is potato-like, more like a sweet potato. And they were pretty cool, but they were dissolving, and sometimes in this humid climate, they were changing into glue-like thing. So they were damaging the clothes. How are we with time? Let me see. Oh, almost, but I'm almost finishing. So let's come to the conclusion. So at the moment, as niche brands, we are facing these, let's say, challenges of the production minimums. And I'm thinking that the good solution for that would be to come together as a collective and order bigger amounts of things and demand the factories to create something that is more sustainable. But first we need to have a collective, and this is why I really like what we're creating here as communities that are more aware and more progressively thinking. So hopefully we can find this here, and we can find the yeah, the groups of people who can participate in this as a future sustainable fashion project. So what do you think of this? What are your thoughts? Did you learn anything new from what I was talking about, or was it all something that you were familiar with?
No, everything was new. I was just like wondering if I missed it, or if you didn't say it, like how can exactly small private brands, which obviously do not have a reach of H&M, be sustainable while being affordable?
Yeah, so we can't. That's why that's why we have to raise the price for now, until the demand for the sustainable fashion will grow, and then we can have decent. It's of course it's a matter of perspective, but this is, you know, this is my personal struggle that I have, because I want it to be affordable. And I have, for example, as a competitor, because I make yoga leggings, for example, and jumpers, and my competitor is Lululemon, who is making part of their business sustainable, but there is a big range of their clothing that is not so sustainable, even though they market it as sustainable in general. So this is what we're really competing with as well, is the greenwashing, which is the marketing that is not that ethical, I would say, because it's using the green as something that is easier to sell their products. But yeah, so this is the personal struggle. That's why a lot of companies don't make it through. But we still have hopes, because more and more people are converting into shopping more consciously and buying less. And I think what really helps is the influencers and the campaigns and all the good things that are happening on Instagram and social media that are introducing people into sustainability and even minimal lifestyle. This is also a big part of it. So buying less, but quality products, more durable, more niche products. Yeah, so I don't think we should be competing with the big brands. We should just have, we just need to be really true to our values and just continue doing what we're doing. And eventually, hopefully, the price will just lower down the prices of the materials and the production costs. But I can see this changing for sure. Past 5 years has been a massive change in terms of how many companies are even considering to be sustainable, even Inditex and H&M. Yeah, so I see it as a positive